90% of you are going to be flat broke before the end of this year. It is a brutal, disgusting statistic, and honestly, it is entirely your fault because you are playing a game where the house always wins while your only strategy is hope. Most of you are busy picking out expensive ergonomic standing desks and aesthetic office furniture, while the startup death spiral is actively measuring you for a casket. If you want to stop bleeding cash and actually survive this year, you need to stop playing visionary and start playing mechanic. I am going to rip up the social media hustle script and give you the actual cold-blooded roadmap to mechanical survival. 1. The passion trap your business blindfold. We are culturally brainwashed to believe that passion is the ultimate fuel. It's a lie. In business survival, passion is a blindfold. It triggers massive confirmation bias that makes you ignore the very data trying to save your life. When you're in love with your idea, you interpret polite indifference as buying intent. Someone says, "Oh, that's an interesting concept," and your delusional brain translates that into, "They're pulling out their credit card tomorrow." This isn't entrepreneurship. It's a hallucination that leads directly to no market needs suicide. 2. The $50,000 hobby. Almost half of all failed startups, 42%, die because they built something nobody actually wanted. It is the ultimate form of founder arrogance. You spend 12 months and $50,000 building a beautifully coded app for a problem that everyday people aren't even willing to spend 5 minutes trying to fix on their own. Listen closely. If a customer isn't already spending time, energy, or money to solve a friction point, your product isn't a business. It's a hobby. A very, very expensive hobby. If you have to educate a customer on why they should care, you've already lost before the transaction even begins. 3. The myth of persistence. The entrepreneurial world praises the founder who faced 100 rejections and refused to pivot. We call them geniuses, but that is just survivorship bias, disguised as strategy. For every one visionary who brute forced a market into existence, there are 10,000 who quietly went bankrupt. Persistence in the wrong direction is just slow-motion suicide. The most successful founders aren't romantic. They are cold, calculating, and pragmatically ready to kill their darling ideas the moment the balance sheet says no. They don't dig their heels in to protect their ego. They pivot or they shut it down before the fire spreads. 4. Broken unit economics, the math of demise. Eventually, your ego has to show up on a balance sheet. You see founders popping champagne because they acquired 100,000 new users this month. It looks great on a LinkedIn post, but under the hood, they are selling $100 of value for $75. They are losing $25 on every single transaction and masking it as growth. They tell themselves, "We'll make it up on volume or we'll monetize later." That is the math of demise. Getting 10,000 more customers when you're losing money on each one doesn't make you successful, it just accelerates your death. You are burning your own house down to keep your neighbors warm. 5. The Amazon trap. Stop comparing your small business to Amazon or Uber. It's a trap. Jeff Bezos famously lost money for a decade, but Amazon was actually making money on the books they sold very early on. They just chose to reinvest every penny of profit into infrastructure. The difference between you and them, investor oxygen, most small business owners do not have millions in venture capital to float a 3-year deficit. If your direct revenue minus your direct cost is negative, and you don't have a massive war chest, you are not building a moat, you are building a suicide pact. 6. Premature scaling. A jet engine on a canoe scaling is not a strategy. It is an accelerant. It multiplies whatever is currently happening in your operations. If you're losing money, you just lose it faster. If your business model is broken, scaling just accelerates your arrival at insolvency. It's like putting a jet engine on a canoe and wondering why you're underwater. The thrust doesn't make you go faster. It just tears the structural integrity of the boat apart. Look at the early days of SoCal Mall. They hired so aggressively and expanded so fast that they created a chaotic, unmanageable culture they couldn't afford. They built infrastructure for 1 million users when they only had 100. Keep your team agonizingly small. until your engine is bulletproof. Wait, think you're safe because you just signed $1 million deal. You might actually be closer to bankruptcy than you were yesterday. 7. The cash flow mirage. A signed contract is not cash. An invoice is not cash. This is the cash flow mirage, and it is. Founders see a massive deal slated to close in Q3 and start spending in Q1, as if that money is already cleared in their account. The danger gets magnified with enterprise clients who dictate terms like net 60 or net 90. You deliver the product today, but you wait 3 months to get paid. In a high-interest environment, the cost of floating that capital is devastating. You're paying rent, payroll, and server costs out of pocket while waiting for that check. Your spreadsheet says you have 12 months of runway, but your bank balance says you have 4. One delay from that client, and you can't make payroll. 8. Case study. The fall of Bijou. Look at the edtech behemoth Bijou's. They had an astronomical valuation of $22 billion. Unbelievable, right? But their aggressive expansion required massive immediate cash outflows, while their revenue was tied up in future projections and subscriptions. When the market tightened, that cash flow mismatch turned a $22 billion empire into insolvency almost overnight. Valuations are vanity. Cash flow is sanity. 9. Lifestyle inflation and the burn rate. Ignoring your burn rate is the ultimate unforced error. Far too many founders treat their initial funding like monopoly money. Instead of staying lean, they immediately inflate their lifestyle. Fancy offices, expensive vice presidents of vague departments, and premium coffee budgets. The Ars Digital story is a painful example. They went from a lean, hungry team of 80 people who actually got things done to a bloated mess of 200. They hired executives demanding over $200,000 salaries while the revenue stayed completely flat. They traded a scrappy wartime culture for a comfortable, entitled corporate mentality. They increased the burn rate without increasing the revenue capacity. That is a fatal error. 10. Valuation, death spirals, and vulture investors. When the market reality crashes into your internal projections, the valuation death spiral begins. Maybe interest rates rise or you miss a revenue target. Suddenly, your company isn't worth what it was in the last round you hit a down round. This destroys internal confidence. Your top engineers, who took low salaries in exchange for worthless stock options, will bounce immediately. You're left with a skeleton crew of B players to fight a war you're already losing. In desperation, you might seek death spiral financing. Predatory vulture investors who offer floorless convertible notes. They are literally betting against you, shorting your stock to drive the price down so they can cover their position with cheap shares. If you're looking at toxic debt to make payroll, you've already lost. 11. Founder discord, the internal grenade. Statistically, the person sitting across from you right now is a bigger threat to your company than your biggest rival. 65% of high-potential startups fail because the founders turn on each other. It is a more consistent killer than competition. Under financial pressure, every unspoken disagreement surfaces. One founder wants to cut staff to survive. The other wants a Hail Mary venture round. Take Quincy Apparel. Two best friends shared authority equally to protect their friendship. No one had the final say. When the cash crunch hit, they were paralyzed. They prioritized the comfort of the friendship over the mechanics of the business. They lost the company, and they stopped speaking to each other entirely. 12. The psychological toll entrepreneurial failure isn't just a financial event. It's an identity-shattering trauma. When your identity is enmeshed with your company, its death feels like your death. Founders experience intense isolation because they can't show weakness to employees or fear to investors. They carry the burden alone, leading to insomnia, cardiovascular issues, and clinical depression. To survive, you must build an adversity quotient, a psychological resilience that decouples your personal value from the financial outcome of your business. If you don't manage your psychology, panic will take over, and a panicked founder makes the impulsive, fatal decisions that guarantee the death spiral. Your survival roadmap. To survive the next 12 months, you must stop acting like a romantic visionary and start acting like a cold, calculating mechanic managing a machine. 1. Validate the problem before you spend a single dollar. If people aren't already trying to fix it, walk away. 2. Prove your unit economics. Ensure you make a net positive return on every transaction. 3. Protect your cash flow from the mirage. An invoice is not cash. 4. Audit your expenses weekly. Be relentless about reaching break-even. Keep your burn rate lower than your ego. If you're ready to face the math and save your business, comment mechanic below. Most people will keep playing founder until the bank account hits zero. Don't be most people. Hit that subscribe button for the next deep dive on how to actually manage your runway before it runs out. I'll see you in the next one.